Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sun Moon Audiobook, the channel where we share wisdom and inspiring book journeys to help you grow and develop your best self, inside and out. There's a place, somewhere between the breath you just took and the one you're about to take, where everything you've been running from and everything you've been reaching for meet in the quiet. It's not loud. It's not even demanding. It's just there, like the faint glow on the horizon before the sun decides to rise, whispering that you could start over if you wanted to, that you could shed the weight you've carried and step, maybe for the first time in years, into the life you were meant to live. And yet, how often do we stay still instead? How often do we choose the familiar ache over the unknown possibility? I think about that space a lot, that delicate, trembling moment when a person realizes they're allowed to want more. Jen Sincero writes from that space. She's not a quiet sage on a mountain. She's the friend who's been there, deep in the mess, with dirt under her fingernails from clawing her way out of a life that didn't fit. She's raw and unpolished, yet sharp in the way only someone who's fought for their own transformation can be. Her voice blends humor and truth, sarcasm and sincerity, like a mirror that makes you laugh and wince in the same breath. And what she offers in You Are a Badass isn't just a pep talk, it's a call to wake up, a permission slip to stop dimming yourself for the comfort of others. She reminds us that change is not reserved for the fearless. It's the right of anyone who dares to listen to the pull inside them. We grow up learning how to fit into boxes, to be the reliable one, the agreeable one, the one who doesn't make too much noise. We measure ourselves by the rules someone else wrote, and then we wonder why life feels flat. Sincero challenges that from the start, the belief that you can't rewrite your story unless you have a perfect plan. She says the truth is simpler and wilder, you have to decide. Decide that you're worthy of a life that excites you, even if you have no clue how to make it happen yet. That decision, that moment when you stop apologizing for wanting more, is the spark. Think of it like lighting a candle in a dark room. You don't wait until you have a chandelier. You just light the match and trust that the next thing will become visible. The book insists on this. You're already more powerful than you think. But that power doesn't come from some hidden vault of talent or luck, it comes from the choices you make daily. And maybe you, listening right now, have forgotten that your choices are still yours. Maybe you've been living on autopilot, saying yes when you mean no, letting days blur into weeks, convincing yourself that this lukewarm, halfway life is all you get. That's the lie. Sincero pushes you to see that you've been subscribing to it, and you can unsubscribe anytime. One of the threads she weaves again and again is the connection between your thoughts and your reality. It's not just a feel-good idea, it's the architecture of your life. What you believe shapes what you attempt, and what you attempt shapes what you experience. If you've been telling yourself you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready, your actions follow suit. You won't raise your hand for the opportunity. You won't start the project. You won't even let yourself imagine what's possible. But when you start changing the story, when your inner dialogue shifts from I can't to I am figuring it out, the world you live in begins to shift too. This isn't magic. It's alignment. It's learning to tune your mind to the frequency of the life you want. There's a reason so many great artists, leaders, and changemakers talk about vision. Oprah didn't build her empire because she waited for someone to hand her a blueprint. She started with a deep, unshakable belief that she could shape her life in ways that mattered. She fed that belief daily until opportunities found her ready. That's the kind of self-trust Sincero is trying to hand you. Not the illusion that you'll never doubt yourself, but the muscle memory of choosing in your own favor, even when doubt whispers loud. And here's where the book is beautifully blunt. You can't just think your way into transformation. You have to act. Fear will always show up. Waiting for it to disappear is like waiting for the ocean to be still before you swim. It doesn't work that way. You move anyway, trembling and unsure. And that's how you discover the water isn't as cold as you feared. I remember a moment small to anyone else, but seismic to me when I stood outside a doorway, my hand hovering over the handle, knowing that opening it meant stepping into a room where my old self would not survive. My chest was tight, my legs felt hollow, and for a flicker, I almost turned away. But something in me, some stubborn, aching part said, "Not this time." I turned the handle, and nothing in my life was the same after that. That's the pulse of this book. The understanding that your badass self isn't waiting for the perfect conditions, it's waiting for you to open the damn door. She talks about the habits we cling to, the excuses we dress up as logic, the endless rehearsals of all the reasons it's not the right time, and then she dismantles them, with wit sharp enough to make you laugh mid-realization. She calls out the comfort zones that feel safe but slowly suffocate, and she reminds you that fear's favorite disguise is practicality. She dares you to notice how much of your life is ruled by the opinions of people who aren't even living the life you want. And maybe that stings, but it also liberates. Because if they don't hold the keys, you don't have to keep knocking on their doors. You have your own set, and the more you use them, the more doors you'll see that you never knew were there. When you start to really understand what Sincero means about aligning your thoughts with your reality, it's like realizing you've been wearing glasses with the wrong prescription for years. Suddenly, the edges sharpen. You see the details you've been missing. And yes, that can be unsettling, because with clarity comes responsibility. You can't unsee the ways you've been keeping yourself small. You can't pretend you don't know that the endless scrolling, the constant complaining, the circling in your own self-doubt are choices that have been steering the direction of your life as much as any external circumstance. But that's the raw, luminous truth. If you can choose habits that dull you, you can choose habits that sharpen you. This is why she talks about the power of intention like it's oxygen. You can drift through your days reacting to whatever lands in front of you. Or you can start each morning asking, what kind of person do I want to be today? That question alone can rewire the way you move through the world. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. The moment you choose to step into a higher version of yourself, even in tiny, barely visible ways, you start creating momentum. Think about someone like Jim Carrey. Before the fame, before the movies, he wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, dated it years in the future, and carried it in his wallet. It wasn't just a quirky ritual, it was a declaration to himself that he would live into that vision. He aligned his energy, his actions, and his mindset with it. And eventually, that check wasn't a dream anymore. It was his reality. That's what Sincero means when she says you've got to act as if. Not to fake it in a hollow way, but to start showing up as the person you want to become, even before your outer world catches up. Because if you wait for proof before you commit, you'll be waiting forever. And yet, here's the tender part of all this. Change isn't a straight, ever upward climb. It's messy. It's stepping forward, tripping, catching yourself, and stepping again. It's staring down the old fears when they sneak back in dressed as new logic. And it's forgiving yourself on the days you don't feel brave at all. There's a midpoint in this journey where you might feel suspended between the life you've outgrown and the one you're building. You're not where you were, but you're not quite where you want to be. It's easy to feel lost here, like maybe you made a mistake trying to change. But this, Sincero would tell you, is sacred ground. It's the cocoon stage, the quiet, unseen transformation where nothing looks different on the outside, but everything is rearranging on the inside. If you're here, don't rush it. Don't rip yourself open just to see if the wings are ready. They will be. And when they are, you won't need to ask. You'll feel it. In these moments, the mantra she threads through the book becomes a lifeline. You are responsible for the energy you bring into your life. Say it again. You are responsible for the energy you bring into your life. It's both terrifying and empowering. Terrifying because it means you can't just blame your way into a better future. Empowering because it means you are not stuck. You are never stuck. You who are listening right now might have been convinced for years that the walls around you were solid, that the ceiling above you was fixed. But Sincero's words are a hammer in your hand. Every limiting belief is just plaster and paint it crumbles when you hit it with enough clarity and action. She doesn't pretend this is easy. She knows that stepping out of the patterns you've lived in for decades feels like learning a new language. Your tongue stumbles. Your thoughts default to the old words. But she keeps bringing you back to the truth that growth happens outside the comfort zone. And your comfort zone will never shrink on its own. You have to push its edges. The beauty of this is that you don't have to leap into the impossible on day one. You just have to take the next step. The one that scares you but also excites you. The one that makes you feel more alive. And with every step, you build evidence that you can do hard things, that you can trust yourself, that you can live on purpose instead of by default. This is where the magic starts to loop. You think differently, so you act differently. You act differently, so you get different results. You get different results, so you believe differently. And that belief feeds back into your thoughts. It's a cycle you get to control, one choice at a time. And then something beautiful begins to happen. You start catching yourself in the moments when the old patterns try to sneak back in. You notice the split second before you'd usually say yes to something that drains you, and instead, you pause. You hear the familiar voice of self-doubt rising in your head, and you choose not to follow it down the spiral. These aren't grand victories anyone else will applaud, but they're monumental shifts in the architecture of your life. Sincero reminds you that the universe responds to clarity, not confusion. When you're vague about what you want, your actions scatter. But when you get clear, when you say, "This is the direction I'm going," even if you don't yet know every turn, the opportunities, people, and resources that align with that vision have a way of showing up. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you're finally tuned to notice them. It's like they were always there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to declare that you were ready. And here's the thing about declaring readiness. It often comes before you feel ready. Sincero talks about this paradox again and again, how the people who change their lives aren't the ones who wait for confidence to arrive before they act, but the ones who act their way into confidence. You don't get stronger by standing on the shore thinking about swimming. You get stronger by getting in the water, shivering, splashing, finding your rhythm. And each time you prove to yourself you can handle it, the fear loses its grip. She also speaks to the way we cling to stories about ourselves, those quiet but relentless narratives like, "I just not the type of person who," or "people like me don't." These stories might feel like facts, but they're just scripts you've been rehearsing for years. And if you can rehearse a limiting story into your bones, you can rehearse an empowering one just as deeply. That's why she urges you to flood your mind with new words, new beliefs, new images of who you're becoming. Saturate yourself in possibility until it starts to feel more natural than the old despair. There's a tenderness in how she talks about self-love, not as a spa day indulgence, but as the daily discipline of refusing to speak to yourself like an enemy. You can't bully yourself into greatness. You can't shame yourself into expansion. You grow when you become the kind of person who has your own back, who encourages yourself with the same compassion you'd give to a friend who's struggling. And yes, that might feel foreign at first, especially if your default setting has been self-criticism. But every time you choose kindness over cruelty in your inner dialogue, you're rewiring the way you see yourself. And that shift ripples outward into the choices you make, the relationships you nurture, the risks you take. Somewhere in this journey, you begin to understand that the life you want is not a reward for suffering through the life you have. It's available now, in pieces, in the small and brave decisions you make today. Sincero encourages you to stop thinking of change as a mountain you climb only once, and instead, see it as a path you walk daily. Some days you'll sprint, some days you'll crawl, but as long as you're facing forward, you're in motion. And the longer you stay in motion, the more you realize that the badass version of you isn't a future destination, it's who you are when you stop letting fear drive. You've always been that person. The work is simply to remember, and remembering isn't always a lightning bolt, it's often a quiet unfolding, like peeling back layers of paint to reveal the wood underneath. You start to see the moments in your past when you were braver than you knew, when you made a choice that didn't make sense on paper but lit something up inside you. You see the times you thought you'd been stuck but were actually gathering the lessons that would fuel your next leap. Sincero's voice in these pages is relentless in its insistence that nothing is wasted. Every misstep, every detour, every heartbreak is part of the mosaic. You may not see the picture yet, but each tile matters. She brings humor into this truth, because transformation can be heavy if you take it too seriously. She laughs at the absurd ways we sabotage ourselves, pokes fun at the excuses we cling to, and somehow makes you feel lighter while also calling you out. It's a rare skill to hold someone accountable and lift them up at the same time, and she does it in a way that leaves you feeling energized rather than shamed. The core message that weaves through everything is that you are the only one who can decide how your story unfolds from here. Not your past, not your circumstances, not the people who underestimated you, and definitely not the fear that's been sitting in the driver's seat for too long. You, the one hearing this right now. You hold the pen. You get to choose the plot twist. That choice is about waiting for some grand opportunity to fall into your lap. It's about deciding, right now, that you're willing to do what it takes to create the life you want, even if it means stepping into uncertainty. She challenges you to stop treating your dreams like fragile things that can only survive under perfect conditions. Dreams are meant to be tested, stretched, lived in. They're meant to get messy. And when you stop treating the mess as a sign you're failing, you start seeing it as proof you're actually in the game. Think about every person you admire, every story that inspires. None of them got there by avoiding risk. They got there by showing up, again and again, even when they were scared, even when it looked impossible. Sincero doesn't just tell you this. She dares you to live it. And in daring, she offers you this deep, unshakable truth. You don't have to become someone else to be a badass. You have to become fully yourself. The part of you that already knows what you want, already feels the pull, already has the strength. It's been there all along. The work is to clear out the noise, rewrite the stories, and step into the space you've been keeping at arm's length. And when you do, when you finally give yourself permission to want what you want and go after it without apology, you'll look back and realize that the life you thought was too good to be true was simply the life you were always meant to claim. So start now. Start where you are, with what you have, with the next small action that feels like truth. Trust that each step is carving the path beneath your feet. And remember, because it's worth repeating, you are responsible for the energy you bring into your life. Hold that close. Let it guide you. And watch, slowly at first and then, all at once, as the horizon you thought was fixed begins to move. If this message has touched you, if it sparked something in you, I'd love for you to carry it forward. Like, share, comment, and subscribe so we can keep building this space together. Your insights, your stories, your reflections, they matter more than you know. They're part of the ripple, and maybe, just maybe, they'll be the words someone else hears on the day they decide to open their own door.